And a brief word in English for my non-Portuguese speaking friends. There are lots and lots on Facebook and throughout the different social media outlets. We just celebrated the Portugal Day, or Day of Portugal. That is also the day of the poet Luís Vaz de Camões, and a day that Portugal itself dedicates to its communities abroad, those who are either immigrants or those who are of Portuguese background, whether they be first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and in some cases in Brazil, even sixth and seventh generations. And so we celebrated it through the Portuguese Beyond Borders Institute at California State University, Fresno. PBBI took this initiative, first time ever done in California, that over 24 people participated by reading the works of Luís Vaz de Camões. We had most participations in Portuguese, but we also had a few participations in English, and that's great because Camões' works are translated to English. And those of you who don't read Portuguese, I would highly recommend that you take one of the many translations and read a little bit of the excellent work, complicated but excellent work of Luís Vaz de Camões. And so it was a pleasure for this marathon of reading Camões throughout the day. We began a bit before 7 a.m. California time, and we're ending it after 8 p.m. So a little over 13 hours of basically every hour, two, sometimes even three presentations of reading Luís Vaz de Camões. Who knows? We may have started a tradition. We hope so, because what we would like to do is to continue to celebrate everything that is Portuguese, and in this case, the Day of Portugal, Portugal's Day. We want to, of course, celebrate the country of Portugal, where many of us or our forefathers came from, or those of you who aren't of Portuguese background. Many participated who weren't of Portuguese background, but have some kind of an affinity towards the country, towards the language itself, the Portuguese language. So, thanks to all of you for celebrating Camões. Thanks for participating in this marathon of over 24 folks from San Diego all the way to Marin County, from Brazil to the Azores, who celebrated the Camões and his works here on the Day of Portugal, Portugal Day, a product of the Portuguese Beyond Borders Institute. This celebration it is, and we are happy that all of you took part. And we also were happy to do the first of many sessions that we'll be doing throughout the next few months, virtual sessions, celebrating this very unique time, the very unique date, I should say, that we are celebrating, which is the centennial, the 100th anniversary of the first Portuguese language radio program in California. It was indeed on the 10th of June of 1920 that a then young man by the name of José Vitorino, an immigrant from the island of Terceira, who from all best accounts had been here in the United States about a dozen years or so, and who started a Portuguese language program on radio station KMBC in the area of Stockton, Modesto. Mr. Vitorino was not literate. He did not know how to read or write. He did, obviously, that's his language was Portuguese, but he did not know how to read or write, and he did begin the very first Portuguese language program in California. It is interesting to note that it was in 1920, the centennial is this year, and that is why we're going to have quite a few events throughout the next few months in Portuguese and in English commemorating this historic date. Because even those who no longer speak Portuguese, they remember and they have fond memories, as I've seen through some social media posts, of the Portuguese radio programs, especially those of the 1960s, 70s, and 80s even. And radio is still an important part of our community now with the new technologies, and totally different, obviously. And so we'll be talking about this. This historic date with Mr. José Vitorino starting the program Vasco da Gama in honor of the great navigator, the Portuguese navigator that discovered the sea routes to India. Mr. Vitorino began Portuguese radio in California 2 years before radio began in Portugal, and began exactly the year that radio began in the United States of America, which was around the 1920s. So it is quite an accomplishment for the Portuguese American community in California, and we'll continue to reflect on this and to register these memories through the Oral History Project of the Portuguese Beyond Borders Institute at California State University, Fresno. We want to thank all of those who participated. We want to thank all of those who are sponsors of the Portuguese Beyond Borders Institute and our major funder, the Luso-American Development Foundation, Fundação Luso-Americana para o Desenvolvimento, better known as FLAD, from Lisbon, Portugal. Continue to have a great Day of Portugal, Day of Camões, the Day of the Portuguese communities outside of Portugal. Dia de Portugal, de Camões e das comunidades portuguesas. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will continue doing more of these projects as part of the outreach of the Portuguese Beyond Borders Institute at California State University, Fresno. Thank you so much.